Welcome to Windows Intune PC Management with Cloud Services. Hopefully everybody's here to learn about Windows Intune, which is not a competitor for iTunes, it turns out. My name is Mark Shepard. I'm a lead program manager for Windows Intune. I've been with the product since the beginning, since we started it. And I'm here to answer your questions and tell you a little bit about the product. It's a 200 level class, so it's going to be very high level positioning. What does a product do? Give you a demo of how it works. Talk about the value prop and what customers it's targeted for, as well as the roadmap. What customers it's targeted for now, what customers will it be appropriate for going forward, and then how to buy it, all the licensing terms. And I'm going to try to save, I'm going to ask everybody to hold their questions until the end. I'm probably going to leave about 20 minutes at the end, so that should be a lot of time for Q&A. Even though it's a 200 level class, again, I used to be a developer on the team, I'm now a program manager, so we can talk about it in any level of depth that you all would like to. So that's our agenda. So first question, at a very, very high level, Windows Intune is a cloud version of Configuration Manager at a very high level. So Microsoft spent a lot of time investing in the cloud, as you all know, for the last few years, and this is our answer to management from a cloud. So first, just a show of hands, how many of you are currently using Configuration Manager? A lot. How many of you are currently using WSUS standalone without Configuration Manager? Even more. And how many of you have tried Windows Intune? Just a few. Okay. So Windows Intune will eventually become a cloud version of Config Manager. It doesn't have that full feature set yet, but that is our strategy. And the momentum behind moving to the cloud is pretty strong right now, and this is a key component. What is Windows Intune itself? It's got three basic pieces to it, which we'll talk about in a little more detail in the next few slides. The first is you can manage and secure your PCs from anywhere. So this is the idea, is it's a hosted service that does management from the cloud. And the nice thing about it is all you need is an internet connection. So out of the people that had Config Manager, how many of you are managing every one of your PCs all the time, even when they're on the road? So a much smaller number, right? So we've even found that people with advanced management tools still have trouble reaching all their machines all the time. A lot of people have to VPN in before those machines become managed, or when they're on the road, they're not being managed, or other kinds of... So the nice thing about a tool like Windows Intune is all you need is an internet connection, you're managed everywhere, right? And symmetrically, you can manage from anywhere. As an IT pro, all I need is an internet connection, and I can get to the cloud from my web browser, and I can manage from anywhere. The other thing besides a management service is Windows Intune also comes bundled with upgrade rights for the latest version of Windows. So if you have Windows XP Pro or Vista Pro, which is a little less common, then you have the right to upgrade to the latest version, which is Windows 7 Enterprise. So you have the upgrade rights to the latest and greatest version of Windows, helps you standardize on one operating system, lower your costs, and we have the management from the cloud, so ease of management. The nice thing about it, the big value prop, is that it takes almost no time to get up and running with Windows Intune. I'll do a demo which will show you basically what you have to do to get up and running with it, but you can be up and running and managing your first computer in about 10 minutes, literally. And I'll walk you through basically how to do that. And the trial's available, so any of you can sign up for the trial and try it after the session. So I'll elaborate on those a little bit more. So when I say protection from the cloud, what do I mean? In particular, the current version has the following workloads. We can protect from malware. We use the same malware protection engine as in Forefront Endpoint Protection, which is also the same malware protection engine that's in Microsoft Security Essentials. This is a common malware engine from Microsoft. And so we protect the computers, and then you get the reports so you can see if there's malware outbreak, or if somebody's behind in their signatures or anything like that. Second thing is we have update management. For those of you familiar with WSUS, the management UI will look very similar. In fact, our team used to own WSUS, and we took WSUS and made it multi-tenant, and that was part of the basis for our cloud-based service. And we've borrowed a lot of the pattern, and you'll see a lot of similarities. So that's managing Microsoft updates. We have software and hardware asset inventory, so you can manage your assets from the cloud and see who needs to upgrade. Do I have older versions of software out there? We have remote assistance based on the Live Meeting Easy Assist tool, which allows end users to request assistance, and then as an admin, you can take control of their desktop and help them out. And we also have the ability to set security policies. Right now, the policies are limited to the agents. You can configure the agents that do these things, and you can set your firewalls, but we'll be adding more policies over time. So it's a pretty comprehensive set of things, but still, it's a version 1. We have more to add, and we'll talk about how it compares to Config Manager a little bit more later. We talked about how it fits your business, right? Low amount of time to get up and running. What do I mean by that? This is the elaboration slide to that point. For those of you in the IT business, if you've ever tried, when you set up management infrastructure on premise, it's a lot of work, right? You have to set up your servers, and it's not enough to just buy one server. If you want a high availability configuration, you're going to have a couple of servers, maybe a couple of SQL servers mirrored, maybe some front ends, in a cluster. Buy that, license it, set up a monitoring infrastructure so you know when it's down. Be able to set up an alert escalation pipeline so you can respond to it when you find there are problems. Maybe have a disaster recovery plan so you've got offsite backups. It's a lot of work. One of the value props of Windows Intune is you don't have to do that. We take care of all that for you. So, capacity planning. I didn't even mention capacity planning, right? We will scale to meet your business needs. And that's why you can get up and running in 10 minutes. So here's a quick overview of what you have to do to get started. First thing you do is you go to Microsoft Online to sign up for it. It's the same website that lets you sign up for other business online services like BPOS, Office 365, Azure. Could also start with our marketing page. If you just do a Bing search on Windows Intune, our marketing page is the first thing that shows up, and you can learn all about it and sign up from there. Once you sign up, you then log into our web service. It's a web page, and from the web page, you can download this client enrollment package. So the client enrollment package is what you need to put on each of the devices you want to manage. The devices don't have to be domain joined. They could be. They don't have to be. You just get the enrollment package on those devices however you want to. The simplest way is just interactively installing it. Go to the machine, double-click on it. But you can push it out via group policy software installation or other tools as well. And once you've downloaded the package and installed it on the machine just shows up in the Windows Intune admin console, and you can start managing it. You'll see if it has malware. You can deploy updates to it, put it in computer groups, all that other stuff. And then there's some other initial configuration tasks that you might want to do, and we'll take a look at those also. But you can get the basic thing where you're just managing a computer, see it in the console, really quick, 10 minutes. Which is a good lead into the demo. So you see here I have the Windows Intune admin console. So right after you have purchased it or just bought or just signed up for the trial, you'll get one of these. It's basically an empty admin console. If you look at the structure of it, you're going to log in with a live ID. And you see there's a SSL connection up here. So that's what we do for security. The console is based on Silverlight, and it has on the left side navigation panes to do all the work that we just talked about, update management, endpoint protection, alerts. But because we don't want people to have to hunt and peck, we actually have everything that you need to do. We tell you what to do right here in the system overview page. We'll tell you if you have malware that you need to work on, if you have updates that you need to approve. I'll show you that in a lot more detail later. Right now I'm just showing you the getting started piece. And then we have the task pane where you have actions that you can perform on any of the objects on the right. And that's the pattern we use throughout the entire UI. Again, the goal is to keep it very simple. We have this notice board here that gives you critical system notices, like if we have a new beta available or something like that, we may tell you through the notice board. But one of the original notice boards you're going to get is it's going to tell you, hey, you don't have any agents installed. Maybe the first thing you want to do is install some agents. Again, trying to walk you through what needs to be done. If you click on that, that takes you all the way down to the administration client download page, from which you can download the client software. The UI will tell you how to manually install and how to deploy it for automated install. But at the end of the day, all you're going to do is you're going to open it up and download it. And if you look here, you'll see that there's both an executable and a certificate. The executable is a generic enrollment package that's common for every customer. The certificate is specific to the account that you've just purchased or tried. And when you enroll this machine using this executable, it'll use the certificate, send it up to the service, and say, I'm with this account. And then it gets a client-specific certificate and identity, and that's how we securely enroll machines only in your account and the right account. The executable also has a command line option that you can use that will extract some MSIs. We have a 32-bit and a 64-bit MSI. So if you want to deploy for automated installs using, say, group policy software installation, it's somewhat convenient to use the MSI instead. And when we walk you, I'll take all the questions at the end, if that's okay. So I'm not actually going to show you the enrollment process because it's a little time-consuming for the demo. What winds up happening is after I install the agent, it is an interactive UI when I click on the exe. The enrollment package, first it enrolls, then it bootstrap installs all the other agents we need. There's the anti-malware engine, there's the desktop monitoring engine, so all the other components that we need get bootstrapped installed. That often will require a reboot. The anti-malware engine will require a reboot. And then after the agents are all up and running, they report their status. So usually you'll see the computer in the admin console within about 5 minutes, and then all the agents will have reported. You'll be fully managing it within a half hour. Which is a little longer than I want to spend in this particular demo. But once you've done that, your computer will show up in the computers, all computers list, and you can start seeing status on it, and you're done. You're ready to start managing it. So that's literally all you have to do. There are a few more advanced things you may want to do at the startup. So I'll talk about a few of those. One is, if I go to the policy workload, what I might want to do is I want to create a new policy for my agents. So I might want to create a policy that says default agent policy. And as you can see, for the endpoint protection, it says, do I want endpoint protection? Do I want to enable it always? A lot of people have already an existing endpoint protection product, so they don't want us to install on top of it. So the default is to only install if there's not already another product there. But you can also have us automatically remove the competing products and put ours in instead. That's what happens if you say yes. And then there's a bunch of other configuration options for the malware. Similarly for update management, some of the key ones, I'm not going to go over every one of the policy settings, but for the update ones, just like WSUS and the Windows Update Agent, very similar set of policies. I can say I want to schedule install every day at 3 in the morning. That's the default. So that means when I approve an update in the admin console, all the clients, they sync and they download those updates at a random times a day to distribute the load. But whatever the clients have downloaded and ready to go at 3 in the morning, that gets the schedule installed. You may decide, no, I don't want to do that schedule install. I want to do it instead of every day, I only want to do it on Sundays, or maybe I want to prompt the user for installation. Usually for automated services like this, you want to do a scheduled install, and it's just a question of what's the schedule, right? And after I've done that, I can save my policy, and I can deploy it to all computers. So it's my default policy for all the machines. So I recommend doing that just so you're really sure exactly how the clients are going to behave, although it's not necessary. The agents do have pretty intelligent defaults. Another thing you may consider doing is configuring auto approval rules. Again, you can manually approve updates as they become ready, but just like with WSUS, I can configure auto approval rules. So I could say whenever any kind of product updates are available, if it's a security update, I want to automatically approve it. Oh, excuse me. If I say it's a security update, so I say auto approve security updates. So I say if there's for any product for security updates, I want to automatically approve them to all computers. And now I don't have to manually approve them as they come in. Some people may automatically approve them to a test group. So how many of you automatically approve security updates to all computers? Very few. How many go through a staging process where you first go to a test group and then roll it out? So that's a more common scenario. So smaller, like for me, I manage 4 computers at home and my 2 work computers. So I blast away the security updates because it's only going to affect me. But for careful and thoughtful IT pros like you all, going to a test group first and then like a week later approving them to all computers makes a lot more sense. And the auto approval rules help you in either case. The other thing you might consider doing at the beginning is setting up alert notifications and additional administrators. I can add additional administrators just by adding new live IDs. So I can create as many administrators as I want. And then the alert notifications, what I can do is I can say whenever a certain type of so here are the recipients of alerts, and then here are my notification rules. I can say whenever there's a critical alert, I want to let this partner know. Or whenever an end user requests remote assistance, I want to fire off an email. And it can be different emails that go depending on the person. So I think it's a good idea generally to configure at least critical alerts, like new malware found, so that you'll get email automatically. But again, optional, you don't have to. So that's it for getting started. Then you're up and you're managing your computers. Not that much to it, really. So, quick summary of what we just talked about. The Windows Intune client enrollment package you download from the administration client software download page. It's a zip file that contains an exe and cert. You can just interact. The exe and the cert have to be in the same directory for it to work. The exe looks for the cert in the current directory. You just double-click on the exe, run through a wizard, you're enrolled. You may need a reboot. Half hour later, the machine will be fully configured and managed. If you want to deploy it for automated install, what you want to do is you want to, there's command line flags for the exe. There's 2 command line flags. You can deploy the exe for automated install with a /quiet flag. That suppresses the wizard. And the exe contains both the 32-bit and 64-bit MSI, and it'll figure out when to install each of them. The other thing you can do is you can deploy the, there's the wizard. The other thing you can do is you can use the /extract flag on the exe, and that will extract a couple of MSIs, and you can deploy those using group policy software installation, for example. And you can put a WMI filter on each one that says this one applies to 32-bit machines, this one applies to 64-bit machines, and now you have a nice automated way of deploying it to all your domain-managed machines. And as I mentioned, the process is you first install the enrollment package. After the enrollment package is installed, it will then bootstrap install all the current versions of our agents, and it may restart the computer. It will likely restart because of the anti-malware engine. And then you'll be managed in a half hour. Some troubleshooting steps. If the install fails, first you have to detect, did the install fail? Well, if it's an interactive install, you'll find out it failed because it'll just tell you, the wizard will tell you, hey, it failed. If it's an automated install, you'll find out because the agent will send a message up to the service saying, I failed to install, and will give you a notification, will give you the FQDN of the machine, so you can see which machines it failed on. Of course, one of the top problems is a lot of people don't have their proxies configured correctly, or other networking issues that prevent the enrollment from working. We found during our beta testing that was one of the top issues, is proxy configuration. So the first thing to do is, if you find you're having install problems, is test the connection. Can you bring up our website from the client machine, manage.microsoft.com? What are your proxy settings? That's the first thing to troubleshoot. And then if you have to go deeper than that, we have a link that has more advanced troubleshooting techniques that involve looking at the log files and making some guesses from there. Right? And of course, we have support. Some network bandwidth consideration when you're rolling out the service. So those of you who are used to on-prem products like WSUS or Config Manager, those products download the software, the updates once into the server itself, and then from there it's distributed to all your clients. With Windows Intune, since you're managing from the cloud, all the clients are downloading directly from Microsoft Update, and that can really put a strain on your network if you haven't planned it thoughtfully. So what are some options to reduce the load? This is just typical load. The initial enrollment, the enrollment package is about 10 megs. I think it's, when I looked at it last, it was 12 megs, and then each of the individual MSIs were about 5 megs. And then the bootstrapping of the other agents can be quite a bit. Endpoint protection, it goes and checks for updates 3 times a day and pulls down new updates. Patch Tuesdays, you have several megs of data coming down. And then every now and then there's a big thing on Patch Tuesday, like Windows 7 SP1 was released pretty recently, and that was a pretty big package. So what are your options for reducing the load on your network? The thing that we're recommending right now is deploying a caching proxy. So if you have Squid or the Microsoft proxies, which is ISA or TGM is the new name for it, or Bluecoat, any of the popular caching proxies will work. You just configure it that way. Be aware that if you have branch offices that have a narrowband connection and you've configured them to also use your corporate proxy, that can create some load, so you have to be thoughtful about it. You may want, in that case, to configure the end nodes to download directly from the internet rather than going through the corporate proxy. So a number of people have asked, are you going to be adding more caching techniques and more bandwidth control over time? And the answer is yes, but this is what we have for the current version. We'll talk more about the roadmap a little bit later. We found out in our internal testing that the caching proxies are incredibly effective. I mean, we were getting like 95% cache hit rates in our internal testing, which is pretty effective. I think this is less important for people on the road or very small branch offices, but if you do deploy it with, to a large central office, to a lot of the machines there, that's something that you would definitely need to consider carefully. All right, so that's the enrollment. Now let's talk about the management experience. So the nice thing about the management experience is that you can work from anywhere. I don't have to, how do I log into my WSUS server or my config manager server? Well, I don't have to VPN in. Anywhere I got a web browser, I can just go and bring up the admin console. We manage by exception, and we'll take a look at that. The UI gears you towards telling you what to do next. We show you the things you need to take action on, not just a bunch of stuff. We have multi-account administration. I'll actually show you that next just by virtue of the fact that I have to flip from the empty account to a full account. Not that that would be the logical next thing to show you, but you're going to see that. So if I'm an admin, if you're a partner and you're administrating multiple accounts for multiple customers, you can use this multi-account dashboard, for example, to manage all your accounts. We have filtered views for easy administration. The goal is that you should never have to go and generate a report. You should be able to just see everything interactively. But we do have reporting data, and we do have the ability to export it into various formats so you can slice and dice it from Excel or other ways. So let's take a look at how that works. So because I'm an administrator of multiple accounts, or the one that I'm logged into, I got to flip to an account that actually has data in it. And this is our multi-account dashboard. So if you log in and your live ID is a member of multiple accounts, as an administrator for multiple accounts, this is our login picker. And it lets you select which account you want to log into. But we've kind of beefed it up to be more than a login picker. It actually gives you summary health of all the accounts. And in this case, I'm going to log into the Northwest Traders account, which is an account that's already populated with a lot of data. So let's look at how this works. Typical account, I've got a bunch of things that I need to take care of. I have some malware, some updates that need to be approved, a bunch of alerts that have happened on the machine. Let's take a look at the typical day in the life of the administrator. So maybe I've already configured email alerts so that I've gotten an alert that said, hey, there's a new malware instance. And now I want to go investigate what's up. So I log in the front page, it tells me there's malware. That's the first thing I'm going to look at. Let's take a look at this malware instance. Well, here it is. There's the malware. I want to find out a little bit more about it. I can learn about this malware because we have a link to the malware encyclopedia, which the anti-malware team has created for, this one's a fake one, but where you can get all sorts of information about it. In this case, I have a computer that needs follow-up. I may want to find out what's the deal with this computer. Well, it turns out the malware protection engine actually blocked the malware, but it says there's some follow-up actions needed, manual steps, and it'll tell me what manual steps I need to do and some instructions on how to do it. Maybe I just need to go, in this case, perform a full scan on the client. But I may be curious, why am I getting malware on this client? Why did this even happen in the first place? If I click on the computer, I can get a whole bunch of rich information about that computer. I can find out what software is installed on it. I can find out what hardware is installed, if there's any alerts. I already know there's malware, right? But in the general page, it'll tell me, there's 2 updates that this guy needs. What's up with those updates? One of them is a security update. Maybe it's because I have not yet approved this security update that this machine is vulnerable to this malware. So I can take this update and I can approve it to all computers. I actually could find out by clicking on the update, I could find out more information. I find out, there's 125 computers that need this update. That's an awful lot. So in this case, what I'll do is I'm going to just take this update and I can say, yep, I want to approve it for install for all computers. Or again, I could roll it out to test first. Or it may be that it's more common cases it's been in test because you've already configured an auto approval rule to automatically test this security updates, but now you've found out that this is a 0-day exploit, and maybe you push it out to all computers a little faster than you normally would just because you're starting to see problems. This is one of the really nice things about the product is we actually own the IP for every one of the workloads. It's the SCOM, the System Center Operations Manager engine that we use for desktop monitoring. It's our own anti-malware engine for malware protection. It's our own update engine based on Windows Update for update management. And because it's all our own technology, we can create these better together scenarios and make all the stuff work really well together and integrated. So that's one typical type of scenario of responding to malware. You just point out some other kinds of typical scenarios that you sort of day in the life, reacting to stuff. Is when new updates flow down into the system, by default, we won't bother you with the updates if none of the clients need them. So what happens is the updates flow into the computer. We automatically send the metadata for the updates, the detection rules, down to all the clients, and then the clients report back up to us whether or not they need the update or not. They don't tell the end user, they just tell the admin. Now if there are clients that need updates, we'll tell you, hey, you've got a few updates that need approval. But if you had a Patch Tuesday where there's like 10 updates released, but only 2 of them are used by computers in your system, we only show you the 2 because the other ones are not important to your environment. Right? And then you can go and you can drill down on the updates and you can decide what you want to do with them. It's a service pack, maybe I want to roll that out a little slower to a smaller number of machines first. But again, I can approve it to all computers or just to a test group. Can just approve it to the test group for install and then see how that goes. And then roll it out more broadly if there are no problems. So that's update management. It's very similar to WSUS. Very similar. If you go into the updates pane, just like with WSUS, if you go into the updates pane, you can see all the updates. You can do filtered search for any updates that are of interest to you. When you have an update, you can see the status, how many machines are installed on, failed, pending install. So all the statistics you're used to for WSUS or for Config Manager, you can see at a fingertip. Computer management, also very similar. I can put computers into groups. Most people group by location and maybe role. So Seattle office and sales, whatever. It's typical group structure, but it's up to you. Newly discovered machines, just like in WSUS, show up in unassigned computers. And then you move them into whatever groups you've created. And you manage at the group level. I approve updates to groups. I deploy policies to groups. At the beginning, we created a default policy, but maybe I want to have more specific policies for a particular group. Right? Maybe this group of critical workers, maybe for most people, I want to do a scheduled install every day at 3 a.m., but maybe there's some group that I can't afford to have their machines updated and disrupted that often. So maybe for them, I install just monthly. Right? So let's take a look at, I think those are the typical, I've got to respond to these kinds of things. We've looked at responding to alerts, from malware alerts, endpoint protection, updates. Oh, the other thing is we'll tell you if you have any client health issues. If a machine's been offline for a while, we'll tell you. Or if any one of the agents, if the machine's online and talking to us, but any one of the agents we haven't heard from in a while, we'll tell you. So that's a nice way to know whether your overall system is just saying you're green because your clients aren't reporting or if you really are all green. But not all management is reactive to problems, right? Some of the management is more methodical. You're planning. You want to take a look at things. And so let's look at a couple of the scenarios you can do with Windows Intune for those kinds of cases. Software inventory. I can see all the software that's installed throughout my organization. Maybe I want to find out who has an older version of Office installed. Maybe I want to upgrade to Office 2010, and I'm curious how many people still have Office 2007. Right? Maybe Office 2010, I see, most people have upgraded. I've got 253 of those installed, but Office 2007, I still have 42 machines that have that one installed. Which are those machines? And now I can go through the planning process of figuring out how I'm going to upgrade, how many more licenses I need to buy, things like that. It's very interactive. I can go from the list of software to the computer that has it installed, and then I can say, why does this computer have it installed? What other software is installed there? Maybe it's running an older operating system. Maybe that's why, right? So it's all linked together and integrated. Another feature that we have is licensing. So we have all the software inventory. Wouldn't it be useful if you could know whether you have purchased the right number of licenses for all the software you have? So we have the ability to correlate your license positions for your Microsoft volume license against your software inventory. And the way that works is I can upload an agreement. I just specify the license pair, the agreement number, and the customer number. Or I can import a spreadsheet if I have a spreadsheet of a whole bunch of license pairs that I've created. And once you've imported it, it'll just show up, and I can generate a report that correlates the two. So I've already uploaded one, and I'm going to generate just a basic report. I'll show you some of the options in a little bit, but this is a basic report showing me that for Office Enterprise, I've got 42 instances installed, but I have no volume licenses. Of course, this is all mock data. In real life, you probably wouldn't see this. We don't distinguish, so the first page of the report has actually a disclaimer that says, hey, just because it says you've got less doesn't mean you're under licensed, because we just count the number of instances of those things that are installed. We don't know whether it comes from volume license, from OEM, or from retail sales. But this still gives you the overall correlation and lets you know. It's a leg up on it, right? And in this case, I have TechNet Direct, where I have none installed, but I've got 20 volume licenses. So maybe I'm over licensed. Maybe I could fine tune that. So that's what the license reconciliation report does. Some of the more advanced features of it is if you have a larger company, you may have different cost centers. So I could put different licenses into license groups. In this case, I'm generating it for all my licenses, but I can create license groups and say these volume licenses are for this cost center, these are for this cost center. And similarly, I can correlate the reconciliation report for that group against some group of computers, because that cost center may be correlated to like a branch office, like the Seattle office. But the report looks the same. It's just some advanced configuration features. And once you have any of these reports, the nice thing about any of the reports is after you've generated a report, like on software assets, I can always take these reports and I can always export them to any of them. I can print or I can export them to a spreadsheet. And then from a spreadsheet, you can do much more advanced slicing and dicing and analysis, right? You could use Power Pivot or any of the other tools to really party. I don't know if party is an appropriate word for asset inventory, but oh well. Should mention one other thing that we built recently. It's a status page. So the main URL is manage.microsoft.com. This is the status page from Microsoft.com. The service is currently deployed in 3 geographic regions. We have one in the Far East, one in Europe, and one in the United States and North America. Depending on where your company is located, when you sign up, that will determine which geo-region your data is stored in. No need to worry about latency problems if your data is stored in the US and you're roaming in some other country, because the admin console is built in such a way that All the data that you need to render a page is generally made in just a couple of queries, and the data is returned very efficiently. So even with a few hundred milliseconds of extra latency, everything comes up pretty quick. But depending on where your geo-region is, you can look at, is there any service health problems? If you find problems logging into the service, which I don't think you will because we've been extremely reliable, but I shouldn't say that, knock on wood. So far we've been reliable. But if you do, this is the first place you can go to see, is there any problem? And we also give historical information about if there's been any problems, just because we want to be very transparent about our health. We haven't had problems for a while, but if you scroll back a ways, you will see that we had some service issues. Maybe they've fallen off the radar already. That'd be good. Okay. We had service issues back in we had service issues back in March, but we only keep 30 days worth of history, so I guess we're clean now, which is good. So, quick summary. We have, of all the services, we have endpoint protection. It's built on the same endpoint protection engine, the same anti-malware engine as FEP 2010. Has centralized reporting. We have policy configuration to configure it. That's what makes the management part. That's what makes it different than Microsoft Security Essentials, is the policy and the reporting. We have update management, very similar to WSUS. In fact, we took the WSUS code base, made it multi-tenant, so it's a very familiar paradigm. Asset management, we took a look at that. You can see all the software, navigate between machines and the machines that have the software installed very easily. And you can export to a spreadsheet and do more advanced slicing and dicing. Security policy management, I showed you the example of managing the agent policies. You can also manage firewall policies, and over time we'll have more. Alerts and monitoring, we actually have each machine, we run an instance of the operations manager agent and check for things like low disk space and other errors on the client and send proactive alerts up to the service. And you took a look at some of our views and our reports and the ability to export. There's an end user experience I didn't show you because I don't have this machine enrolled. But after you install, there's this thing called Windows Intune Center, and it'll let you bring up the update management, let you scan for updates. It'll let you bring up the endpoint protection experience, where the end user can manually, update their signatures or scan if they want to. Return to the report screen. So this is an update report. We've tried to design it in a way that you don't need to do these reports very often. Internally, we call these dead-end reports, because it's just a list that you can print out and show to your manager, right? But if you look at the update experience I showed you before, if you just go to the update view, which is the very interactive thing with hyperlinks that's all integrated together, you can get most of this filtering right then and there. You can export from the update report. You can export the update report from the view. If I look at the view of all computers, I can export that, and I can slice and dice whatever I have in the view. Yep. Although let me hold on questions for a little while. I'm actually going to be done in probably 10 minutes, and we'll have 20 minutes for questions. I'm trying to make it because a lot of people usually have a lot of questions, especially when you have a new product. I should have mentioned, we just RTM'd in March, so it's very new. Right? And then the status page, which is where you go to find out if there's any service health issues, and it's also designed for us to give transparency to you to build trust, so it's two-way. So what's our customer promise? Customer promise is to reduce the cost of managing and protecting PCs. Very little upfront investment. You can get going quickly. We make it secure by default. One big question customers have is, what about privacy? I see that you have a license reconciliation report. Does that mean the sales guys are going to go tell me I need to spend more money? And the answer is no. We have a privacy statement that makes it very clear that your data is your data. Nobody else is going to look at it. We are ISO 27001, and we're working on our FISMA compliance. So we actually honor the privacy statements, and we have a lot of controls in place to make sure that people who don't need access to any of the data can't have it. Of course, you still need people like operations to be able to deploy on the boxes, so there are limited cases, but it's your data, and we take that very serious. Highly available. We have public SLAs on the availability of the service, and they're financially backed SLAs, and we have monitoring reports, and we're transparent on our availability through the status page. And we are scale up to 20,000 PCs per account. So how does Windows Intune compare to Configuration Manager? Well, Configuration Manager and other on-premise products, Configuration Manager has been out for 15 years. We've been out for 2 months. So no surprise, we don't have a lot of the features that Configuration Manager has. We do not have software distribution in this current release. So software distribution is the ability to publish a third-party update, or the ability to publish a line of business app or Office and distribute that. Can't do that in the current version. We don't have OS distribution. So actually a bunch of other features we don't have as well. So the point here is we are a subset of what you can get in on-prem. But the vision for the product is to have what we call smart parity. So smart parity means we are not going to have every feature that Config Manager has, because there's a lot of knobs on that thing, because our goal is simplicity and ease of use right out of the box. But we are going to enable all the same scenarios that Config Manager has, but in a simpler way. And you're going to see very heavy investment in the product over the next couple of years. You'll see rapid releases, and you'll see a lot of new capabilities come online quickly. And the nice thing about a cloud-based service is once the new capabilities come in and we deploy them, they're just available. You don't have to do capacity planning. You don't have to think about the rollout. You just log in as an admin, and you see some more capabilities available to you. And the clients automatically update to the latest version. We take care of all of that transparently to you. We're going to provide migration tools to make it easier to switch in the cloud, and we're going to go one step better. We're going to start investing more heavily in the cloud. So we're going to have new innovative features that will only be available in the cloud. So the cloud is our investment, and that is where we're pumping a lot of resources internally. And you'll see that over the next few months and few years. That being said, since that's a few years away, what can you do right now? Right now, if you're using Config Manager and you're managing all your clients, this product's not for you because you've already got all your machines managed. Right? This may be interesting to you just to know what's the vision and roadmap for Microsoft, but it's not something you'd want to deploy right away. For right now, if you have non-domain joined machines, if you have very distributed offices, a bunch of small branch offices or a bunch of roaming laptops, so those kinds of scenarios, or if you're just currently using a bunch of disparate tools, you're using a little WSUS, a little group policy, some spreadsheets for asset, a bunch of stuff, and you want an all-in-one tool, then this is useful. So it's basically taking lightly managed or under-managed machines and or machines that are managed by a disparate set of tools, and then you can quickly get them managed. That's what it's useful for now, but as the years go by, in the very not too distant future, it'll be suitable for a much broader set of machines, basically anybody with an internet connection. So this one, pricing and licensing. So the price for Windows Intune is $11 per device per month, unless you already have an enterprise agreement. If you have an enterprise agreement, it's $5 per device per month. You can buy the desktop optimization pack as an add-on. Discounts are available for volume licenses or computers that already have, or if you have already got software assurance. You can buy it either directly online through the Microsoft Online portal from our the page that takes you to for try and buy, or you can buy it through volume licensing. The Windows software and services are non-perpetual subscription licenses. That means when you buy the subscription, you get the service plus you get some volume license keys for Windows, because remember it comes with the software assurance, the Windows 7 upgrade rights. So you'll get those volume keys. If you cancel your subscription before 3 years is up, then those volume keys you can buy out. You have to be 3 years to get the volume license rights. Otherwise, if you quit early, you buy out. And we can manage. We're a desktop management product, so you can manage Windows Professional, Enterprise, or Ultimate SKUs. It's not for managing home SKUs or servers. So the key takeaways is Windows Intune is an easy-to-deploy, all-in-one, subscription-based solution, cloud-based security. All you need is an internet connection. You get the latest version of Windows Enterprise. We've taken a lot of care to make it highly available, secure, private, and scalable. We're the team that built Windows Update and Microsoft Update, so we know a lot about building scalable and secure services. And this one uses a lot of that technology. It's simple to use and scales to a large number of machines, but because it doesn't have the same feature set as Config Manager, it's suitable for a scenario subset for right now. But the roadmap is to get equivalency. Smart parity is what we're calling it. So look at our marketing page, download it, install it, try the trial. Some related content here, and track resources. And please fill out an evaluation, but before you all do, remember that I love you all very much. So that's it. I'll take questions now. Yeah. Oh, they asked me if I could ask you to speak into the mic. Is that okay? Oh, is the mic not working? Okay. I'll just repeat your question then. So the question is there a web deployment option? And the answer is, in this version, there is not a web deployment option. Right now, you'd have to find some way to get the binary out to the to the end user. The scenario you probably have in mind is, what if? Oh, okay. The scenario you might have in mind is, what if it's an end user-owned device, so I can't use group policy software installation to deploy it? But the end user's device, they still want corporate email, so I still want to make sure that device is managed and secure. How do I get it out to them? And for that scenario, it sure would be convenient if there was a website they could go to, maybe to log in with their corporate credentials in order to download and self-install. Is that what you had in mind?
Even better than what I had in mind.
Oh, okay. That's great feedback and something that we should definitely consider for a future release. And have actually spent some time thinking about already, but it's not in this release. But thank you for the feedback.
The other question was, currently you have to know who you're deploying to. Is there a look for maybe in the future to determine everybody that's on your network that either does or does not have it, the program?
Yeah, that's another great scenario. Question is, can you determine who does or doesn't yet have Windows Intune installed? So something that would maybe make some calls into, LDAP calls into AD to say what machines are there, and then make some calls into our internal APIs to say what machines are already enrolled, and then sort of compare the two and say, here are things that haven't been enrolled yet, so you can help plan the enrollment. And that is something we're looking at for a future release, as well as more tightly integrating with sysprep. So the idea is you shouldn't have to, in an ideal scenario, you shouldn't have to worry about that, right? You should be able to just deploy an OS image that has the agent already built in. And if everybody's using the standardized image, you don't have to then go track down these 50 machines and figure out how to get Intune onto them. So again, that's something else that we're looking at, but not in this current version.
That's exactly. Right now we have the front-end protection, but sometimes you find a machine that didn't get put on, or whatever. There's nothing that you just find it by accident. There's no console that says that this person is on your your network media doesn't have protection.
Yep, that's great feedback, and thanks. We'll bring it back to the team. Something we've thought about, and again, it's now the question is, what order do we build them in? And it's good to have feedback. Yep.
So you showed license groups. Is
Yep.
that based purely on quantity, or does the software piece pull in the license number?
The license groups are a construct of Windows Intune. So you pull in the license agreement, and when you enter those two numbers, the agreement number and the customer number, from that, there's a system called CLP, and we can pull in, given those two numbers, the entitlements.
Okay.
So it'll say, with this agreement, you're entitled to 50 copies of Office 2010 or whatever. And so then we store that.
Right.
Then the concept of grouping those volume licenses together into groups, that's purely Windows Intune. So you would just, like if you had a Seattle office that was its own cost center, you could take all the volume licenses that they had bought and put it in a group called Seattle licenses.
Okay.
And then you could reconcile it against your Seattle target group. And that would be how you could see whether they have taken care of their business. And then you can also see, well, maybe they're a little over licensed or under licensed, but as a corporation, we're okay.
Right.
So you can still generate the holistic report.
Okay. So the software inventory piece does not include retrieval of a license key, for instance?
The software inventory does use the fact that there's a license key installed, but it doesn't return that in a meaningful way that you can reason over.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Also on licensing, you have the ability to track licensed non-Microsoft software, say Adobe Acrobat.
Yeah. So the question is, do we have the ability to generate, so to add your own Adobe, like I've got a license for 50 copies of Adobe Photoshop version blah. And this version does not have that ability. It only has the ability to do Microsoft volume licenses. But the third-party licensing is something that has been top of our mind for a while and expect to see innovation. I can't say when.
Without commitment.
Yeah. But that is an area that we've definitely looked at, not in this version. Yeah.
But the group policy that you say that comes down with the client, it's kind of a watered down, or not really the full group policies that you can manage obviously through GPMC. But does the client that you install on the box, does it actually modify the local group policy, or does it kind of have like a layer on top of it that sets certain settings for you?
That's a great question. So the question is, well, what is this whole policy thing? How does it work? How does it interact with group policy? So the policy engine is this internal code name we call Lantern. It's the same policy engine that's used for configuration managers, desired configuration management engine that lets you sort of reason over the state of the system. Right now we have a limited number of policies. The way it works is actually it's actually a provider model where it can decide what's the best way to set the policy. It can call APIs if it needs to. It can set things in WMI, or it can just write things to the registry. So it really depends. For the case of our agent policies, we just write to the registry, to the same place group policy writes to. We do a GP update at the end. So if there's a conflict between group policy and the policy configured from the cloud, group policy will win. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it's good. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, I should ask you because I already got you last time. Yeah.
So for endpoint protection,
Yeah. For endpoint.
there was the option of yes, no, maybe. Basically, if none is detected, then it will be enabled. Is there a list, or how do I determine if my existing endpoint protection would be recognized? Is that purely just forefront and?
Well, we'll determine not to install if the what's that thing in Windows called that tells you whether you have AM installed or not?
Oh yeah.
The Action Center. If it tells us something's installed, then we won't install. The set of things that we actually know enough about to do a competitive uninstall, that's a smaller list. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but it's in our documentation, and I can find out for you offline if you want.
Okay.
And did you have a question?
Yes, actually quick questions. First is, it is possible to block the user ability to install software not approved by Intune?
Is it possible to block the end user from installing software? No, it's not. That's a great feature suggestion for a future release, but no, that's not one of the features. Like an app locker type of scenario, right? Yep, we don't have that.
Corporate system center to Intune
Yep.
for 1,000 users per job. So, second question is possible to extract the software and hardware information from Intune, so inventory information? Can I extract a bundle of information from hardware and software perspective from Intune?
Can you extract which?
All the software and hardware information from the machines in Intune to
Yeah, the software and hardware information is uploaded to Windows Intune. So for any computer, you can see what software and hardware is installed.
I can extract this to a spreadsheet for it.
You can export the software to a spreadsheet. Do we have the hardware? Did that bug get fixed? I don't remember. I'm not sure about the hardware. There may be a bug where the export doesn't work. I'd have to.
Yes, I am asking you because SOX compliance.
Right.
People are asking us about SOX compliance. We need a spreadsheet with all software and all hardware in common. So this is ability of.
We don't have a simple way of creating an export of all the hardware within your environment in this current version. The software, we can show you all the software within your environment, and we can show you the hardware for a particular computer, but we don't have a report that shows you the hardware for your entire environment. So you couldn't export it because we don't even have that exposed at all in this version. But I mean, it's something we realize that we need for a subsequent release.
And it's possible to extract or see performance information on the machine. For example, to plan performance, capacity planning.
So is there performance information? You mean performance of the desktops, like the
Usage of computing resource, for example, CPU, memory.
Ah. No, that's an interesting scenario. That's not even one that we've thought about so far, which is to see the average CPU load, kind of like a remote perfmon kind of thing.
But
No, that's an interesting idea.
don't need to be real time or something historical for it. In a historical way for it.
Right, just for right now. And what would that be for? What was the scenario?
Because in our scenario, we have 1,000 salespeople that do not are part of the company in terms of technology. And we need to know about the performance of those machines to install, to deploy a new kind of software.
I see.
Or even to plan the buying process for new machines.
Yep.
The kind of information that we have in SCOM today.
Yep. We don't have that in this version.
Okay. And the last question. You have some partner of record speeds program for Intune? I'm a partner. I wish to know.
Yeah, it's the same partner as the same partner program as for all the other MS Online services. So if you just go to MS Online and then partner, you can find out all the information. What?
It's called Cloud Essentials.
Cloud Essentials.
Cloud Essentials.
Yep, and it's the same revenue fee and certification program as for everybody else. So you can, if you sell the Windows Intune to a customer, you get 18% revenue the first year, and then 6% residual for as long as they're subscribed. And there's a management dashboard where you can see all your things. You have to take some training and a lot more detail than I mean, we could talk more offline.
Okay. Thanks for the attention. Great presentation.
Sure.
On the remote assistance piece, you as the administrator have to be invited by the user to remotely control the desktop, or can you do that at any time as a user?
Right, so the question is, for remote assistance, can this be generated from the admin console, so I can effectively have a TS type of session to the desktop, or does it have to be generated by the end user? And the answer is it has to be generated by the end user in this version. We have no ability to initiate action from the service in real time in this version. One of the reasons why is because all the firewalls are in the wrong direction, right? Like unlike on-premise. In order to implement a feature like that, you'd have to have the endpoints basically stay connected to the service. Once they initiate the connection, of course, you can then send them down commands. That's not something we built in this current version. but it's something that we're looking at for a future version, since not just for remote assistance, but for arbitrary tasks like follow up on malware. Why can't I update the signature now and reboot and those kinds of scenarios as well? So it's good feedback, something we're looking at, not in this version.
Tack on to that. Future answer, something about remote access and task manager. So you're not actually seeing the desktop, but actually you can see task managers get live performance information.
Yep.
You can kill tasks without ever interrupting users.
Yep, that makes sense. Having a remote task manager so I can interactively kill tasks, or as the other gentleman mentioned, so I can look at what the perf counters are, any of those scenarios. Those are not things in the current version. Once you have the ability to initiate action from the cloud, those are the kinds of things you could build on top of, but we don't have that ability. Right now, it's all client polls every 8 hours. Yep.
New features that impact the client, will those things automatically be pushed, or will we have a way to say, I want to put this in the test first and then deploy it out to everybody later?
Yeah, so the question is, as we roll out new versions of the service, will we have the ability to let you guys test it, or will we just blast it out? Our plan, long-term, is that we're just going to blast it out, but we're going to do it in a way that is very methodical and completely transparent to you. So we would be incredibly careful. The idea is we do a few customers at a time, make sure that there's no problems. We have talked about potentially giving the option, but I think we would only give the option if we weren't sure we could do it transparently, right? But the goal should be that we just do it transparently. You don't have any testing to do. We should do the testing. So that's the goal. Yeah.
So as you go through different version revisions, do you envision having the client having to update the agents on the machine? So as you move from one version to the next, am I going to have to roll a new client out?
Right. So the question is, as we move from one version to a next, do you have to roll out a client? And I would say, similar to the question I answered for him, as we go from one version to another, it should just be completely transparent to you. The way we handle it is we have that same software distribution engine, that same update pipe down to the clients. That same pipe doesn't just distribute updates. We distribute also our agents as updates. So when we have a new version of the service available, new versions of the agents would just flow down and just be there. So that's how we've got it designed, so that it should be completely transparent to you. You just log in one day and there are new features available. The new features aren't turned on because that would break backwards compatibility, right? Everything works just like it did before, but there are new things available. And then in the notice board, that thing that said you got new clients, you probably see a notice that says, you've just been upgraded to a new version of the service. Go check out these cool features. And the goal is to provide that in a kind of a regular and quick rhythm. Certainly much quicker than the every 2 or 3 years that you see for on-premise products. Yeah.
So I don't personally manage our enterprise agreement, but as I believe I understand it, we have like a 3-year agreement. We true up once a year kind of thing, and occasionally get checkbacks or whatever, reconciliation. How does the monthly fee work? How dynamic is that in counting month by month? What's the interaction there? Is that like billed monthly? If we have an enterprise agreement?
If you have an enterprise agreement, how is it actually handled? Typically, it's handled the same way that you handle your regular enterprise agreement. You can do invoice billing. I believe, I'm not sure. Paul, do you know? I don't know if they have because we have some enforcement, because a lot of enterprise agreements people true up at the end of the year. Right. So they buy a very minimal amount and then they true up at the end of the year. But we do have some seat enforcement logic. So like if you have purchased X number of seats, we don't let you enroll past 2X. So I don't think the full true up model would work for this. Right. I think you have to get at least close within a 2X factor in order to use all the agents that you need.
Okay. Because before your slide had M&A on there, that was one of the things I thought is, my company's in the process, very M&A minded.
Yep.
20 to 100 person companies, and half of them are mismatched equipment, they don't have domains. You know, some have Linux, some are whatever. And I can see like a 3-month usage
Yep.
to push it all out, get them all up and secure, then join them to our domain, and then, you know, put them on our in-house
Yep.
infrastructure and kind of roll out that as a dial tone kind of strategy, but I don't know how that would work if it's.
Well, the nice thing about it, though, is you can sign up for new seats anytime you want. You can add.
Right.
So, but you would have to keep it somewhat close. It can't just be buy 10 seats and then true up at the end of the year, and then meanwhile use, you know,
Right.
500 or 1,000. That I know that wouldn't work, just because of how
If
we do the
anything,
seat
we'd be
enforcement
using
logic.
less than we have to have.
You can do a rolling purchase. You could buy 10 seats, and then when you hit the block and it's at 20 seats, it says, hey, you
They
can't
may
roll
have to
anymore. You could then go for a little bit more. Yeah.
To be added to the admins group, do you have to use a live account, or is there any way to tie this back to like domain membership?
So that's a great question. So do I have to use Live ID for my administrators, or can I use my Kerberos AD credentials? And right now, it's just Live. Being able to use Kerberos credentials is something that we're also considering for a future version. But yeah, thanks for the feedback, but not in this version. I know I've been saying that a lot, but in fairness, it is a version 1, just launched 2 months ago. So, but expect to see a lot of innovation. All right, thank you all very much, and we'll be what? Tap. Do you want to make a pitch for it? Well,
Go ahead.
anybody who's interested in being a TAP partner or on our advisory council or early adopter, we'd love to get more detailed feedback from you. It'll help you influence our product. It'll help us understand your needs. Paul Bergeau over there, my colleague, please talk to him, and that would be great. And other than that, thank you all very much for your time.